I've met so many people. I have so many friends who, oh, where were you? I was just in Riyadh or Al Ula, or I was, vacationing with my family in Saudi. I ran into two Orthodox Jewish guys from Brooklyn in Riyadh. And what are you doing here? Oh, we're looking to open a kosher something or other. Really?
Piers Morgan and Tucker Carlson had a conversation in Saudi Arabia, and it's nuts. It's over an hour long, and it's nuts, folks. I've done one other video on it. I'm going to do a different piece of the video here. I don't think I can take any more than that. If you want to see all of it for whatever reason, you can go to Piers Morgan Uncensored, and it's Shut the F Up, Tucker Carlson versus Piers Morgan. There's no verses. They're just high-fiving and backslapping and bro. Two, voices of the common man sitting in Saudi Arabia talking about, it's absolutely kookabird's nuts. So without further ado, I want to get into it. I'm going to try and resist screaming because these two both drive me right up one wall and down the other, but I'm sure I will fail at that, and I will have comments. And then I want to know what you think in the comments section, but buckle up. Let's check it out.
I noticed I went to my first ever rally by any politician. I went to the Madison Square Garden rally. Happened to just got to New York, and I thought, I'm going to go down there. And I spoke to President Trump in the morning, and I told him I was going to go down. And he said, you're going to enjoy it. It's like a rock concert.
Yes.
And it kind of is. His rallies are like rock concerts. But I thought, middle of Manhattan, right before an election. I remembered 2016. I thought it could be mayhem down there. I was worried about where I was going to be dropped and whether going to be tens of thousands of protesters, marches through the streets of New York, very liberal city again. And it was extraordinary. I was there for a few hours, and there were 50,000 people outside, but they were all trying to get in. They were Trump supporters without tickets. And I said to the Secret Service, how many protesters turned up? 150 people turned up in the heart of Manhattan to protest. And I thought then, after he got shot, he's going to win. And I thought after Biden got politically shot, it was even more likely he'd win, because I thought that they're going to coronate Kamala in this ridiculous manner. She was hopeless the first time around. It's not going to work. Even more chance of him winning. But by the time I got to that rally, I was like, he's home and dry. He's going to win big.
Yes, I thought that too. I was shocked by it, and I thought, is it a kind of surrender? Is it, Trump just built a bigger siege ramp and just knocked down the walls?
Well, the resistance just collapsed.
But the resistance was fake in the first place. So they use, in my country, and I know yours as well, they used race politics to make everyone shut up. Like, you can't talk or you're a racist. And the truth is,
all right, I can't resist. I know what he's saying. I know this idea that the right is being censored. You can talk. You can talk. It's when you say overtly racist things that it's a problem, and people respond, right? And what the right doesn't like is being called on it.
That was enforced by unhappy liberal white ladies. And there are not that many of them, actually. And they had like a hammerlock on the culture of my country and really oppressed it. And then when they took power through Joe Biden or attempted Kamala Harris, they did like a terrible job. They just didn't do a good job. And so the second somebody just said out loud, like, this is all nonsense. Like, these people don't know what they're doing. The race politics stuff is fake. Look at all the black people outside the rally. All the Hispanic guys like love Trump. It's nonsense. You don't have to obey anymore. And all the liberal white ladies are like, oh, yes, you do. And everyone's like, shut up, liberal white ladies. Like, we're sick of this. The tyranny
fact that Trump won
of the menopausal, angry liberal chick was just too much. And so it's like Liberation Day.
The fact that Trump won the Hispanic vote was truly extraordinary.
Ever met a liberal Salvadoran? No, there's not one. Of course not. The whole thing was totally fake. And it was a certain class of people. It wasn't just menopausal liberal white ladies, though they were in charge, ruling through fear. But it was a whole class of people whose cart was being overturned.
So it's the liberals who rule through fear.
By Trump, and they used kind of symbolic figures like Meghan Markle, as you found out, as their proxies to hold power, but those proxies never represented the groups they supposedly represented. Meghan Markle does not represent black people in the United States. I don't know if you knew that.
No question she doesn't. Don't worry, I'm very familiar.
Again, it's the left who are using race and gender politics as a cudgel.
Doesn't represent anybody.
Of course
other
not.
than a very elite, hypocritical group of people who are really going to go down in history as the most hypocritical group of people ever.
And the most incompetent. Like, they don't know how the power grid works. They can't fix a car. They don't know anything. They're totally useless. They're parasites. And when given the chance to rule, they wrecked the country because they don't know how to do anything.
So just to be clear, Biden and the Democrats and the liberals are the incompetents who don't understand how anything works. And Trump and his administration are the experts that understand the power grid and how to fix a car. Donald Trump, there is that great picture of him repairing the power grid, and there's also a whole bunch of wonderful coverage of him fixing cars. I mean, the expert.
And it was all a lie. And it just turns out you can get pretty far in aggression. And there's sort of a famous battle at Gettysburg, the pivotal battle of the Civil War in the United States, where, the Union detachment led by a guy from Maine called Joshua Chamberlain, who was a history professor at a college in Maine, led a charge with no ammunition. And they just yelled loud enough that the Confederates oh my gosh, and they surrendered. That was an honorable thing to do. A very similar thing just happened in the United States where these super angry, unhappy people acting out of the agony of their own barren personal lives were I'm in charge because you're a racist. And everyone's okay. I mean, they had no bullets in the gun, actually.
What was fascinating?
So there's no racism in America. And the Proud Boys are it's bizarro world. It's bizarre. Well, this guy really believes what he's saying.
To watch it all go down in the last 2 years was you could go back 2 years and Trump appeared to be dead and buried politically, it was over. All the momentum was swinging behind people like DeSantis. It was like the party were desperate to move on from Trump. He was really in the wilderness.
Yes.
Apparently floundering and apparently over. And then, almost from the moment they started the attempt to put him in prison, the lawfare as it's become
exactly
known,
right.
From the moment they started that, I just noticed, obviously you couldn't fail to notice it, but his poll numbers began to tick up and up and up. And the more they did it, and the more cases they threw at Trump, the more popular he grew. What do you think that was about?
Just before Tucker spins his magical web of whatever it is. I think that people were trying to put Trump in prison because he committed crimes. I love how these guys talk about it like it was political warfare. Then they cooked up all these charges. Those charges were brought to trial. He was convicted by a jury, right? It went through the legal system. This wasn't some kangaroo court that trumped up a bunch of false. He did it. And he did it. And his Weasley lawyers managed to get a big chunk of it thrown out on a technicality. And his judge, Eileen Cannon, threw a fair amount of it out. Right, again, every other judge is that's not how the law works, right? It's bizarro world, and they are trying to whitewash and sanewash and brainwash us into thinking that somehow Trump was a great president. He was the worst president in American history. And if you can't remember that, that was right before Biden, right? If you can't remember that, I don't know. Maybe it's the ultra processed foods, right? I don't know what's affecting your brain, but guys.
I think it's about exactly what you said. It was the moment, I think it was August of 2022, when they raided his wife's underwear drawer in an armed raid at Mar-a-Lago on a documents charge, and then tried to tell us he had nuclear secrets in his dressing room or something. It was also stupid. It was so obviously political persecution.
And true. And they spent a lot of time asking him for those documents back. And he said he didn't have them, and they were overly patient with him. It was basically like, look, those aren't yours. You have to put them back in the National Archives. What? I don't have them, right? And this went on and on and on for months and months and months until finally they got a warrant and they went in and got them. And they did include nuclear info. And it's treason, but he wasn't charged on that.
Conducted by the Justice Department, which in our tradition, in our country, like, you can't do that. That is a true attack on democracy.
Oh my God.
It was really at that moment, I think, that, I was on vacation with my kids and my wife and kids, and I read that. I was in a foreign country and I thought, ooh, he's going to be president. And then
did you? You instinctively felt
instantly,
if they're going to try and do this
instantly. And I said that to my son said that to me. We're sitting smoking a cigar, and he's like, Trump's going to win. And I thought, he works in politics, so he's a little better at this than I am. But I was like, yeah, that's totally true. And then the opposition, he had a couple, I thought, very capable people who I like. Ron DeSantis, prime among them.
Yeah.
And the problem with DeSantis was not that he was incompetent. He's supremely competent. And I think he did a wonderful job in Florida. And I really like Ron DeSantis, but he was totally a marionette of his donors, utterly. And that became really clear on, like, the war in Ukraine. Like, Ron DeSantis comes out and says, oh, the war in Ukraine is not central to American national security. And Ken Griffin, his biggest donor, reels him in. The next day, Ron DeSantis is like, oh, no, it's really important that we continue to send hundreds of billions to Zelensky or whatever. And then his donors demand a hate speech law in Florida. He pushes it. It passes. It was too obvious. I would say this to his face. I hope he sees this because I mean it with love. You can't be a pure puppet of your biggest donors. Everyone's influenced by the people around him. Donors have a great deal of influence, inordinate influence probably. But you can't do exactly what they say every time. And it made DeSantis look weak. And it made him look controlled. And this is a moment where people are kind of hip to that trick and they sort of know the politicians, you know what I mean, aren't really acting on their behalf or even independently. They're acting because some billionaire told them to do what they're doing.
That's perfect. So Ron DeSantis is a bad politician in that he does what billionaires tell him to do. Donald Trump is a great politician because he doesn't do that. Elon Musk, Doge, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, right? We saw his cabinet is the wealthiest cabinet. He started a meme coin. Okay, I get this. I'm gonna have an aneurysm. This is so infuriating to me, but what really drives me nuts about this guy in particular, but most of the people on the right, but this guy in particular, is, lots of stupid people are confident in their stupid. They think they know what they're talking about, and they're certain of it. And that's, look, not everybody's the smartest person in the world. I am certainly not the smartest person in the world, but I can admit when I'm wrong. I can admit when I'm wrong. Not only can this guy not admit that he's wrong, but he'll flip-flop and he'll convince himself, I guess, that he never did. He used to hate Trump, right? Remember those tweets? What gets me so infurious about Tucker Carlson in particular is the smug condescension. So he's an idiot and he's wrong and he's an entitled douchebag, but he's confident that he's right. He doesn't hear, this is said without irony and without any awareness of how absolutely backwards and insane what he's saying. He has no awareness of it. There's no sense of irony. He is completely confident that he's right. And on top of that, the sauce that really gets me is this smug condescension of like, dummy, idiots like you can't understand something that's so simple and obvious this. And that is what makes me want to push him over the cliff. So not the most humanistic of impulses, but I got to stop here. I can't keep going. Please, if you have an appetite for this, go to Piers Morgan and watch the rest of this interview. It gets crazier. I did do another video on it. And I just think it's absolutely bizarre, world bonkers. But hey, I don't know. Maybe I'm the crazy one. Maybe I'm wrong. Let me know what you think in the comments.